something massive just went down over the Middle East. We're talking about a huge, coordinated military strike involving hundreds of jets, missiles, and stealth bombers from two of the world's most advanced militaries. They pulled off this incredibly powerful, perfectly synchronized attack. But this was way more than just a typical military op. It was a move with a single, frankly shocking objective. Right. The main goal, according to what we're seeing from intelligence sources, was brutally simple and direct: a decapitation strike. One aimed right at the very top of the Iranian regime. The entire mission, all that planning and hardware, was built around this one incredibly audacious idea. Okay, now before we go any further, I gotta make something super clear. Everything we're about to break down for you is a hypothetical scenario. This whole explainer is based on some really detailed military analysis and open source reporting that's modeling what a near future conflict could actually look like, starting on this specific date. So this whole thing actually had two names. For the United States, it was called Operation Epic Fury. For Israel, it was Operation Roaring Lion. But make no mistake, it was one plan, one massive objective, all coordinated right down to the second. So where did they aim? Right at the heart. We're not talking about some remote military base. This was aimed at the absolute nerve center of the Iranian government in Tehran. The missiles were dialed in on the compound that houses the day-to-day offices of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei himself. But look, you can't just send in the bombers to hit a target like that. Before a single bomb could even get close to that compound, the attackers had to solve a huge problem: Iran's air defenses. You have to kick the door down first, both electronically and physically. The tactic is called SEAD, suppression of enemy air defenses, and it's actually pretty brilliant. Here's how it works. First, U.S. forces launch hundreds of these little decoy drones that look like a giant air attack on radar. The second, the Iranian operators switch on their systems to see what's going on. Bam! Allied jets, which had been flying silent, fire off anti-radiation missiles that home in directly on those active radar signals and take them out. And this wasn't just about blowing up radars. At the exact same time, a massive electronic assault was underway. It wasn't just about destroying them. It was about totally confusing them. Coordinated attacks from satellites, ships, and jets flooded Iranian systems, even their advanced Russian S-300s, with garbage data, making it totally impossible for their operators to tell what was real and what was a digital ghost. So, with the air defenses basically blinded and crippled, the main event could finally begin. And the success of this whole thing hinged on a military doctrine that is just incredibly complex and precise. It's called time on target. And the idea is, well, it's simple to say, but just mind-blowingly hard to actually do. You coordinate everything: missiles, bombs, jets, drones, so that they all arrive at their different targets at the exact same moment. The goal is to create one single, overwhelming shock to the entire system. And let me tell you, pulling that off requires an insane level of intelligence and logistics. I mean, just try to picture this orchestra of destruction for a second. You've got Tomahawk cruise missiles launching from destroyers in the Gulf. You've got Israeli jets dropping bombs after a long flight across the region. And you have B-2 stealth bombers arriving after a 30-hour round trip all the way from the United States. And they all hit their targets across Iran at the very same second. It's the ultimate military choreography. All right, so what kind of hardware did they actually use to pull this off? Let's get into the heavy-hitting weapons that made this whole attack possible. The real heavyweight here was the GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator. This thing weighs 30,000 pounds. It's the ultimate bunker buster, and it's delivered by those B-2 stealth bombers. Its entire purpose in life is to just pulverize targets buried deep underground. We're talking command centers or maybe nuclear facilities that normal bombs just can't touch. Then you have the workhorses, the F-15E Strike Eagles. These jets are basically flying bomb trucks. After the B-2s cracked open the hardest sites, waves of these F-15s would come in, absolutely loaded with dozens of smaller precision bombs to go hunting for things like mobile missile launchers and other secondary targets. And then there's this. Talk about a wild tactical twist. The U.S. apparently deployed its own version of an Iranian weapon. They're called Lucas drones, and they're American-made copies of Iran's famous Shahed design. As CENTCOM itself put it, this was about delivering American-made retribution, literally turning Iran's signature tactic right back on them. So, after all that, the electronic assault, the waves of bombs and missiles, what was the result? Let's take a look at the initial battle damage assessment. The scale is just it's hard to wrap your head around. In just the first 24 hours of Operation Epic Fury, U.S. Central Command reported that over 1,000 separate targets across Iran had been hit. We're talking key industrial, nuclear, and military sites in cities from Tehran to Isfahan. So let's break down the key outcomes. First, the main objective: mission accomplished. Iranian state media confirmed the death of Ali Khamenei. Beyond that, Iran's navy was absolutely crippled. 9 vessels sunk, and its headquarters was largely destroyed. And incredibly, the initial cost to the attackers was remarkably low, with just 3 American personnel killed in that opening assault. But a strike like this, one of this magnitude, it's never the end of the story, not even close. You see, Iran's military is designed specifically to absorb a first blow and then retaliate. The war wasn't over, it was just getting started. Now, to get what happens next, you really have to understand the 2 completely different ways these sides think about war. The US and Israel, they rely on high-tech, surgical precision. Iran's strategy, on the other hand, is all about resilience and just pure saturation, using swarms of cheaper drones and missiles launched from hardened, hidden bunkers to overwhelm even the most advanced defenses. And that retaliation, it came fast and hard. Under the name Operation Truthful Promise 4, Iran unleashed a massive barrage, not just at Israel, where sirens were blaring over Tel Aviv, but at U.S. bases and allies across the entire region: the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. Just like that, the conflict exploded into a regional war, sending total shockwaves through global energy markets and bringing international air travel to a grinding halt. And all of this leaves us with the one big question. Tactically, the operation was a success, right? It took out its primary target and it crippled key military infrastructure. But in doing so, did it actually neutralize a long-term threat, or did it just light the fuse on a much bigger, much more unpredictable firestorm across the entire region?